Selg.
Thank you for that. So then the other piece is you can write your questions in the chat, and then I will be consolidating them and offering them back at the end of Peter's offering. And yeah, I guess those are the details I have. Dottie, I don't know if there's anything else you want to do before you hand it to Patricia.
Let me just see where my hello friends, welcome. Pardon, I'm trying to still let friends come in who have just heard about our beautiful initiative here for bringing the translation of Edith Maryon book into publication. And so I just want to offer welcome and to say that these initiatives we're called Circles for Renewal of Culture. And we have created something called Unbreakable Agreement that comes from Rudolf Steiner's lecture in 1924. And so we've created these events. Our first ones were with Michaela Glockler on Ida Wegman, and the second one was on Marie Steiner. And now we're doing this one on Edith Maryon. And then in July with Peter, with Sergei Prokofiev, and then in September, Albert Steffen, Gunther Wachsmuth, and Elizabeth Rade. And that all comes to the picture of, out of Sergei's work, trying to lift up the imagination of the original Vorstand into our thoughts so that real healing can come forward. So that's our picture. So I'm gonna, we have Brigitte Gallagher from Australia, also Patricia Dickson, and obviously our dear friend Peter. And I'm gonna pass it over to Patricia and say, welcome everyone to our gathering today.
Thank you, Dottie. Good morning to those on the Pacific Coast, and good afternoon in the Midwest and the East Coast. And good evening to those in Europe. And a special welcome to those troopers in Australia where it is 4 a.m. I'm Patricia Dickson and speaking from Northern California. I'd like to begin our event with a verse that Rudolf Steiner wrote for the English sculptress Edith Maryon for her 51st birthday in 1923, just 15 months before her death. Twofold are the forces of the human being. One stream of forces goes inward. This gives you form, an inner root of being. One stream of forces goes outward. This gives you well-being, fills you with light of life. So when the heavy body forces weigh you down, picture yourself all buoyant, filled with light. For the 25 years as a sculpting teacher at Rudolf Steiner College, I began every sculpture class with this verse. It afforded me an opportunity to give a very short mini bio of Edith Maryon and her relationship with Rudolf Steiner, in the hopes that all of these future Waldorf teachers would at least be familiar with her name. That was my own personal commitment. Well, we welcome you all to this fundraising event to translate the biography by Peter Selg into English and get it published. But you might wonder how this specific theme for the event came about. And it was only just 8 weeks ago on May 2nd, which was not just an ordinary date, but was a very auspicious date, as it is the anniversary of Edith Maryon's death. I received an email from Dottie Zold, just from the Centers for Renewal of Culture in Chicago, and just requesting if I would give a presentation in September on Edith Maryon. And I responded with a question. Well, I'd be happy to join you, but could you and would you join me in writing to all the anthroposophical presses that would they please consider publishing in English Peter Selg's biography of Edith Maryon. Well, only a few days later, an email came from Dottie announcing that she had contacted Sevik Gulbenkian of the Temple Lodge Press, agreeing to publish the biography in English if subsidies could be found for the translation and for the first pressing. Well, what an exciting opportunity for two cholerics with a task. So we got started right away to plan this event. Well, perhaps you don't know, but up to now, there's very little in English on Edith Maryon, except for the 2 volumes of Crispian Villeneuve, also published by the Temple Lodge Press, Rudolf Steiner in Britain. It's about his 10 visits. And within that are captured a lot of correspondence between Edith Maryon and Rudolf Steiner during those years. And of course, there is in English the translation of the memorial address and the eulogy that Rudolf Steiner gave for Edith Maryon. And here and there, some reminiscences from co-workers and artists who worked on the first Gerdianum. You'll find some references to Edith Maryon. But not having much available in English written, and as an artist, I had to look to the multiple models that Edith Maryon and Rudolf Steiner created as in their journey of developing the sculptural group. And this to me was a form conversation, a beautiful artistic dialogue that is a living example of how they work together to achieve the goals that Rudolf Steiner set as the objectives. Of course, the sculptural group itself, but also a new direction for art and forming art, and the incarnation, very importantly, of a new Isis myth. Their work together on the sculptural group is important enough to see and understand when Rudolf Steiner said, Edith Maryon sacrificed her entire artistic gift on the altar of the anthroposophical cause. Her selflessness as an artist is really a shining example for us all. And there are also questions from the social scientists of anthroposophy about how did it happen that Rudolf Steiner gave Edith Maryon the task to translate into English his first book on the threefold state when she was a new German speaker and never had any experience in translation. And also, how did it come to pass that Edith Maryon was gifted the Rudolf Steiner verse that we now know familiarly as the social verse, used by the social science section for their work? Well, to me, it's another picture of how Rudolf Steiner trusted Edith Maryon, and he valued her integrity in the work. Another aspect of understanding her important role is that Rudolf Steiner asked her to be the first section leader of the visual arts section of the School of Spiritual Science, even though at the time her very life forces were ebbing away. Perhaps most significant of all is Rudolf Steiner's account in his eulogy for Edith Maryon about how in 1916, when they were working together on the one-to-one model of the sculptural group, that she saved his life from certain death, from a fall from the scaffolding. And he continues to say that if the Anthroposophical Society considers his work of value since that time, then in a certain way, we need to be grateful to her. Well, he goes on to say in her eulogy Edith Maryon's accomplishments on behalf of the Anthroposophical Society should be recorded, and this is a quote, recorded deeply and lastingly in the heart books of its members. Well, perhaps you can understand that a book about Edith Maryon in English is long overdue. And it is our hope with this event that as anthroposophists who seek to have material about this very important individuality in English, help raise the funds to get this biography translated and printed. And thank you. Thank you all very much for participating. Now, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker and author of this new biography of Edith Maryon, Dr. Peter Selg. He's one of the most well-known authors and lecturers in the anthroposophical movement. We are fortunate to have already over 40 books of his work translated into English, but this represents a fragment of his prolific output of, I lost count, but I think it's well over 100 books in German. He leads a very active life as a family man with 5 children, a physician, a child psychiatrist and psychotherapist, an author, a lecturer, and he holds several positions. He's director of the Ida Wegman Institute for Basic Research into Anthroposophy. He's professor of medical anthropology at the fully accredited Anthroposophical College in Germany, the Alanis Hochschule. And he's a member of the leadership team of the General Anthroposophical Section of the School of Spiritual Science in Dornach. Dr. Selg, we are deeply grateful for your extensive and profound research and for your contribution to this event honoring Edith Maryon. Thank you and welcome.